So welcome to our next episode. We're covering the 2018 Swedish film Aniara.
Aniara.
Um,
Aniara.
I think this one was my suggestion, but I messaged you and I was like, man, I feel like you're doing a deep dive on this one, and you have pulled out some info on this film. I
hmm
watched it and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. And then I watched it again just to make sure, and I was like, yeah, no, it's still pretty good.
yeah. So you told me about. I've never heard of this movie before, and you were like, "All right, next movie we do the second one. I think second one. You're gonna be like, it's this movie called Aniara." I said I've never heard of it, and you said me neither. So man, that's a risk to that's a gamble. But you just said it was existential, and so I was like, okay. And then I watched it one and a half times. By which I mean the first time I didn't really watch it because apparently, do you ever like watch a movie but you kind of doze off but you don't really realize that you fall asleep? So like when you wake up, you're like, yeah, I'm still like paying attention. I understand what's going on, but you really have no idea what's going on.
I don't with movies, but I do like if I'm reading a book, I will wake up and be like, oh yeah, no, I totally read this page, and then have to
You read
look
in
and
your
be like,
sleep?
well, no, and then I'll look at it and be like, I don't remember any of this. I don't think like because I'm still like I'm nodding off, but I'm still the words are still going into my brain. My brain is just not processing them whatsoever. So I'll read
Yeah,
three or
I
four
get that. I'm
pages.
ADHD, so that
Yeah,
happens to me like all the time.
yeah, 100%. Like I'll read three or four pages and then like have to go back and be like, what did I just read? Or I'll just pass out.
Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
and that with this movie, it's Swedish, so it's all subtitles. So I missed the entire context of the entire plot. So like what I originally thought the movie was about after I watched it the first time, beginning to end, I missed that they were going to Mars. I thought that they were just like, I guess I missed a whole scene where they were like, we're going to Mars, and I thought that they were already knowingly going very far out to a like an exoplanet, like really far away, that's
well, so
habitable.
so that's a good point to talk about, what the hook of this film is, and also, as a warning to viewers, this film does deal with some very heavy source matter, suicide and infanticide and just beating of women.
Yeah, that happened.
So so just as a warning, like we will probably be covering some of those themes in this one.
Trigger
But
warning.
tell us about the hook. Tell us what the so they're going to Mars
Well, let me
originally.
tell you what I got my first watch,
All right.
and then
All right.
we'll say
All
what
right. What
it's
did you get?
really
What did you
about.
get your first watch?
So, I'm watching it. I'm apparently in and out of sleep, but I don't realize it. I just wake up and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm following it. Um, they're like in space and they're just traveling, and it just takes forever, and it's taking years, and they're like, yeah, we're just going really far, and then it's just a weird movie. There's a weird cult. There's there's orgies, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that would happen if you're on a very far journey.
This
And
movie did
then
have more orgies than I expected, which I think you had said like one isn't a lot, but it definitely is more than you expect.
yeah. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, this is a weird movie, but like I missed all the context, all the suicides, except for the end with the main character's partner.
Yeah, yeah.
Um I caught that. And I was like, wow, that just came out of nowhere. But really it didn't because I missed the context. And then I guess I missed like the end when it's like 25 years later. And then I definitely missed the end where it said 5 million. And I just like I guess I woke up to like the spaceship coming to the planet. I was like, cool, they made it. Turned it off, and I texted you. I was like, yeah, I just watched it. Yeah, it's a weird one. And that's you're like, oh wow, you didn't have anything to say about that.
Not like the isn't there an Aliens movie where it's like the ending is just them pulling up to the planet? Is that Alien?
Resurrection. They
Okay.
come back to Earth in Resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Alien ends how the first one ends how this movie begins, which is just drifting out into space forever.
So then what was the actual you paying attention
Yeah,
hook narrative of this based on an epic poem by a Nobel laureate?
yeah. I don't think either of us knew that at the time.
No, I didn't know how many different versions. I looked up how many different versions of this are. So there's not only is there the original epic poem, which is like a book-sized poem.
Yeah.
You clued me into that there is an opera, but that
Hmm.
there isn't also a made-for-TV Swedish sci-fi film, not an opera, not a musical.
Huh.
And then there's like three or four metal albums because,
Oh yeah, I did hear about that. I tried to listen to one. It was so awful. I couldn't get through it.
um, yeah, there's a couple. So it's like it's a shot in the dark which one you're listening to. Like I think there's a progressive metal album.
Yeah, that's probably there's one. It's just like one song. Like the album, the song is the name of the album, but I don't think the other songs are about Aniara.
Was
It's
it
just
just
like,
one 30-minute track?
yeah, yeah, that's the
Okay.
one. I didn't like it at all. I was just like, I couldn't stand the guy's voice. And then I skipped ahead, and the guitar comes in, and just the tone was just so cheesy, like the guitar tone. I was just like, fuck this.
So there's like apparently like another 31 song album dedicated to this, and then there's a whole other album that came out in like 2012.
I did
And
hear
then on
about
top
that.
of that, there's a whole other opera
Oh,
that
really?
that isn't the original opera, which is crazy. That
Man, the Swedes love this story.
yeah, that well, and then there's a whole other theatrical work that came out in 2019, like right before
Oh,
COVID. Which is I feel like it was a probably a really good time for it.
yeah.
Um, because, heading into COVID, a lot of these themes were probably very prescient at the time. Um, but yeah, so the hook is they're heading out towards Mars and then bad things happen.
Yep. Um, you want me to say? Or
Yeah, go for it.
okay. Um, it's supposed to be a 3 week journey, so it's in the book. I think that it's 8,000 people are on this ship. It's never said in the movie, but we'll just go with the source material. It's 8,000 people, and they're headed to Mars because Earth is no longer habitable. The book is because of nuclear annihilation. The movie is because of climate change. It's just like the ozone layer is destroyed, and so like people are just burning. There's fires, flooding, the whole nine, and so people are leaving to colonies on Mars, and there's many ships. This one in particular is called the Aniara, and so our main character is on it not as a passenger, but as like a crew member. And she's got this AI machine thing called the Mima, and it like reads your thoughts and then makes you hallucinate like being on Earth when it was awesome, and then it's just like really pleasant. It's just like kind of like a drug, and so very shortly into the journey, the ship comes across some debris, and so they like shift out of it real quick, leaving the like trajectory towards Mars, and but like a little tiny thing impales the ship, gets into like the reactor or whatever, and they have to dump all their fuel to stop the ship from blowing up. But now they can't like control the ship. They can't slow down. They can't speed up. They can't turn it. They're just drifting off. And yeah, and so to prevent people from panicking, the captain he just says to everybody, "Don't worry about it. We'll like come across another celestial object, and we'll like use the gravity to slingshot off of it and go back towards our destination, which is Mars. It won't be 3 weeks though; it'll be 2 years." And everybody's like, "Damn, that sucks." But it is what it is.
But we live in a
Uh,
giant shopping mall, so it's fine.
yeah,
There's
I forgot to
Ars
say that. Yeah,
Julius.
it's basically it's space Titanic.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, like an amazing, awesome. It's pretty much like a cruise, basically, but there's a
it
destination.
it definitely is like a big ol' like Disney cruise ship in that there's like a techno rave club and like stuff for the kids, and there's like very, very clearly like 90s mall vibes when you see the
Yeah.
main like in fact it makes me think of like that what is it, the America's Mall, the one in Minnesota that's just like we have a roller coaster inside our mall.
Oh shit.
Um, so everybody's mad, but at the same time they're like, oh well, I guess as long as we still have our Starbucks, we'll be fine.
Yeah, consumerism is like a big thing, and
Hmm.
it really like this movie has a lot of themes and like deep, like meditations on things, and consumerism is one of those like big ones. It's like when shit goes bad, we like our human nature is to just like get distracted by buying things and going to raves, and then everything's okay.
Well, that's a good moving on point to the structure. So, like for me, really, I saw the structure of this film being four parts, like each of the different time skips, and we spend different amount of times in them, but each of them cover different themes. Like the very first part is, when we get introduced to the characters and where they're going, and we get little background info from like the screens and stuff that, Earth is bad, bad things happen on Earth, but there's hope. We have these colonies, you're in a mall, everything's gonna be great, life's gonna be peachy.
But what's
Um,
cool is that not everybody has the same attitude. And there's a good amount of optimism and pessimism, and I guess realism as well. And each of the characters are represent one of those. So, like the main character who doesn't have a name, Ma, or sorry, Mr, which is her title. She's the optimist. She looks at everything. She literally says like, "Hey, Mars is a shithole. Like this is better. Like don't worry about Mars. Like we're having the time of our lives here. Like don't worry about it." And then her partner, um what's her name? It's
Isabel.
yeah. She is the pessimist. She's just like, this fucking sucks. This is torture. Later on, she gets pregnated, but she doesn't want her. She says, "I don't want my kid to like grow up in this prison." So, yeah, she just sees the like downside of everything. Then you have the astronomer who, she's a scientist. So, like, scientists are just all about facts and like that's it. And she's just like, the fact is that there is no celestial object. we're just floating through space and like we will never meet anything. She's not being positive or negative about it. Like she is being a downer, but she's just looking at it how it is and not like putting her own feelings into it. Her feelings come later when she gets like drunk and depressed, but she's more of the realist. And then you have the captain who's more of, I guess, like a hedonist in a way, kind of. He's just like, I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm not thinking positive or negative. I'm just going to tell everybody that everything's fine, and then everything's good from there. We'll worry about the other shit later. I don't care about.
With
Uh,
him, like I don't know about hedonism because I don't he never I feel like he never dove into and we'll touch on that because like what was interesting for me was like except for Isagel, you've never see any of the crew visiting the Mima.
mm,
But with him, I
yeah,
think he was more of a like a realist and like who was just like this is what's happening. This is what needs to be done. Um,
yeah, but
and
he doesn't care about like any of the like consequences because he's just lying to everybody. He's like, "We're going to be fine. We'll be there in 2 years," and then 3 years happens, and he's like, "Well, you know, just make everybody go to the Mima. Like MR is saying, we need more people. We need like more people working for it. Like employees. We need fewer people going at one time. We need to take a break. Like give Mima like a month to like relax so we don't overload the system." And he's just like, "No, fuck that. Do it. Just keep bringing people in. Like I don't care about any of that."
I mean,
So it's
he definitely did descend into authoritarianism, but
yes,
I think it wasn't. I still hold that he's a realist because, like, yes, he was lying to all these people and telling them everything would be fine. He and his like he never believed that lie. He never he
I kind of
his
feel like he did. Like
well no because
he's a denial pretty much.
he knew that he knew they weren't going to find another celestial body in 2 years, but he needed to tell them something because right from the very beginning
Yeah,
he's like, well, what are our food stores? And they're like, we have 2 months. And he's like, and then like his crewmate was like, well, we can grow algae. And he's like, how long to wean them off regular food and onto algae? And they were like, they'll start noticing at this point, but we can fully switch them over within a year and a half. And he's like, cool, do it. And then he's like, we'll be fine in 2 years. He's
yeah,
already planning, like he's a spaceship captain, which
yeah.
is also part of the thing. Like,
He's
I
just
think
not a
it's
good one.
I mean that's up to like do you tell everybody the truth and then have them
Yeah. No, I know
start
that
tearing everything down
I
and like
know. Yeah, that's the crazy thing is that he does prevent mass panic. He
mhm.
does prevent like people looting and stuff. And not only that, but when he does lie to them, that's when everybody gets their hopes back up. That's when everybody starts coming back together as a society. And morale comes up and everybody just works together and like it's all good. But it's for a very short period of time. And then once everybody realizes that what he's saying isn't true, that's when the suicides happen. So it's like that's kind of why I'm kind of saying like kind of hedonism because he's only like living for the moment. He's not caring about the future.
See, but that's the thing. I think he was planning for the future, especially like you see with like the algae baths and that sort of thing. Now, I do think there is a point where his character specifically when he's just like, nope, we got to keep letting the people go into the place with
Yeah.
the Mima. I think before that he was like he had a plan in place, he was good, but then he went full Jim Bro, because that was his thing. That was his. So, and I think for most of the crew, like I mentioned, none of them visited the Mima, um, because I think most of them they've probably been doing these shuttling missions. Like their whole life has been in space.
Hmm.
So Earth doesn't have that same hold it would have over the regular crew. Like it takes a special sort of person to be able to just travel through the void and look out at the void and be like, "Yep, this is fine. I love this big old black empty space, nothingness."
Yeah.
Because that was the other thing. Like while the crew descended further and further into, like a police state, into an authoritarian state, as they lost control, they tried to hold on to control even harder. But they didn't need the distraction of like at some point like the Mima Robin, the MR makes like that projector and people were like, "Oh, look at the pretty stuff outside." And he like gives her a medal.
Yeah,
The
like 4 years later. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but the crew didn't need any of that. Like their single-minded focus
Yeah.
was their work. And for
But
him it was
yeah.
like work and pumping iron.
But yeah, that's true. But that's the interesting thing is when he gives her the medal, like everybody is depressed, like horribly, horribly depressed, and he's just doing that just to like get people positive again. He's just like, I'm just gonna feed them some more bullshit. Hey everybody, we have gone further than any humans have ever gone. We're like the ultimate pioneers, and he's just talking shit because like we see his wrist, he slit his wrist and just benched them up right before he came out. So like that kind of shows us that he didn't even believe what he was saying. He was just saying whatever he could just to like get people like to stop being depressed. And when the spear came earlier, he
So what was the spear? Just for people that haven't
nobody
watched them.
knows. Nobody knows. It's this object that's just hurtling towards them. It's a spear shaped, and everybody's like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like a rescue ship. No, it's too small to be a rescue ship. Maybe it's fuel. And it's just like, you know what? Got it. Cool. It's fuel. They don't know what it is, but he's just like, it probably is, whatever. And he tells everybody, hey, don't worry, we're saved. Fuel is on its way over. Let's just like, be happy again. And then they are, and then the thing comes, and they don't even know what it is. They can't access it. It's made out of like a foreign material that they've never seen before. Um, it ends up being just nothing. And uh, so he really dropped the ball on that because like he's lifting up the spirits, which is good. It in the short term that is great because everybody got happy again and started working together as a society. But when they found out that it's nothing, they dropped so much lower than before, and everybody is super depressed, and there's like mass suicides.
He definitely so the captain definitely made some bad calls. Like immediately telling people like this is a rescue probe. Yeah, not the best call. Lying to people and being like everything's gonna be fine while preparing them for basically living in a tiny little bubble Earth. Probably necessary. Like this is
I
probably like
I I agree, but he's not preparing them. He's just letting them like believe that everything's fine until they find out on their own that it's not. And so he did he's good and bad. The good part is that he lifts people's spirits and he's giving them those gentle lies that like keeps society going, much like our own society. you know um but what he's not doing good is he's not actually preparing them for the future, for that letdown. He's just letting them just find out and doing nothing about it.
I think that part, yes. Like he is not setting them up emotionally for this, but I think logistically that's why like I also agree. Like he's good and bad. Like he made some bad
Yeah.
calls, but he also did some really some good
Yeah,
stuff.
which is,
Um,
like, really interesting character development. Like, you don't
yes,
see
I
that
mean
in a lot
from
of things.
well, like like you see stuff like where you see stuff like that. It immediately made me think of like Shakespeare. In like Henry the Fourth, there's that line that it's like heavy lies the head that wears the crown, where it's just
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
anxiety and the unease of like having to lie to your people and keep up facades, like eventually is what breaks down leaders. Um, I think is definitely present with the captain, but like he logistically, he like had a system where it's like, oh, if you come work, you get extra time you get like extra time at the Mima or something, where it's like if you go work in the algae shop, and then he had like the school set up where they specifically taught astrophysics and engineering because they were like, we're gonna get home, we need some physicists,
yeah.
um, as well as having more and training more like Mima Robin until the Mima committed suicide,
Yeah.
which
That is so crazy.
which I there was there's certain elements in this film. Which and we'll get to that. I mean, we might as well shift into the themes and allegory portion. So, climate change and consumerism. Like I had this whole thing of this tiny ship just being like a sinking Earth, where like they're just distracting themselves from
Mhm.
how terrible everything is through like sheer consumerism. Like at some point they know that their resources are running out. They're just living on algae, but they're still like going to the raves and somebody
Yeah,
is still turning algae into alcohol and
yeah.
like Molly because there's still drugs and booze. And actually
Years later, yeah.
we see the astronomer and she's like brewing prison booze in their bedroom.
Hooch. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, and, but that's she's more of doing that, I think, earlier on. Like, that was like, a lot of it happens when they still think that they're, like, gonna be saved, like, or I don't know, maybe not. Actually, no, you're right.
Well, because she knew
Um,
from the very beginning, like she's an
yeah, she did.
astrophysicist. She was
She's like,
like,
"There's no slush, or we're just floating out forever," and she
yeah,
just, like, tells everybody, and then they all start panicking. She just every time she gets drunk, she just tells somebody,
well,
which is
and
often.
I like the analogy she makes where she shows her the bubble. There's a bubble at the bottom of a piece of glass, and it's the only bubble in this whole thing of glass. And she's like, "You see that bubble? That's us." And
Yeah.
that glass is space. Like we have I forget what she says specifically. Like we have a higher chance of like meeting God or something than finding another celestial body. Um,
Which is funny because then you have the cults, the religious people who they, like, make a religion off of the Mima.
yeah. So I mean, for me, this whole film was just a practice. Like it was a discourse on existentialism and
Very. Yeah.
hedonism. Like for a lot of them, especially like the the astronomer who's just like, look, it's all meaningless. We're all gonna die. Let's just wander around the halls of the ship naked, drinking
Yeah.
booze out of our like booze cup. Um,
It's called a glass.
where was it a glass? I don't remember what she
Yeah.
was using because
Yes.
like her, her like her like prison hooch tankard was like some weird Tupperware with like cellophane in it and
Yeah,
like
that's true.
a bubbling mass, which she did not like even strain at all. She was just like, nope, I'm also drinking all this bacteria, all
She
this
really
yeast that's
knew what
making
she
my
was
booze.
doing. Well, I guess she didn't with all that back for the most part, she knew what she was doing. She really like, she knew how to make alcohol. Um, I guess that's just a thing astronomers know how to do.
I mean, I mean, to be fair, I have made like alcohol before, and in this situation, if you give me enough pineapple rinds and a 5-gallon jug, I could make you some booze. Like, I feel like everybody's left a thing of juice in the fridge way too long. Um, but I think also like the fact that she knew exactly what she was doing and didn't care about all the like yeast and bacteria she was
Fuck
consuming
it.
was because, yeah, exactly. She's like, we're all gonna die anyway. What's the point?
Like this movie should have just been titled "Fuck It, Fuck It," the movie.
Kind of. I mean, there's definitely a lot of characters that had that fuck it attitude, but then there was others like that
Yeah,
started, much
our
as
main
human.
character, our protagonist is well, okay, so I wanted to bring this up a little bit later. I wanted to hear you talk about your thoughts on the existentialism. And then I wanted to go into nihilism versus absurdism because MR, the protagonist, is very much like an absurdist, and really like you have the movie itself, the plot, and everything, and that's fine. But really, like the real story that's being told is like the themes, the existentialist themes of
Mhm.
like I see nihilism versus absurdism. That's the real like um struggle. As you because there's not really much of a fight, I guess, between the characters. It's more of like the actual like existentialism, the nihilism versus absurdism, and then many other themes too. Like there's so much that they crammed into this. It's just like crazy and mind-boggling.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of different isms in this one. So like there are certain characters that very much follow the existential like thought path. Um, life is meaningless, like up to us to find meaning in it. And then you have like very much like the captain and the crew I thought were like followers of like stoicism. Like there is nothing out there, we create our own meaning from the chaos. Same as for like the people in the cults. Like they were seeking, they were creating their own gods, like on this tiny little earth that they're
Right.
barreling through space through. They need something to believe in,
Yeah,
and
because
that
they had
that
nothing.
yeah,
Uh,
well, they had each other,
yeah.
but tribalism, for as long as humanity has existed, tribalism is innate to us.
Yeah,
I
and this
actually
came out of the little like jail thing too. Like that's where it first formed, I think, is when MR gets arrested for like what everybody thinks is that she killed the Mira. So they put her in like this little like prison floor, and that's where like the cult is. That first starts.
see. I didn't pick up on there was a character that you had mentioned, the blind prophet, was it?
Yeah, or like a priest kind of thing. Like
I didn't notice them at all. The only thing I had noticed was that it was the woman that accused her of keeping the Mima to herself and like leading the revolt against the MR, the Mima Robin, was the same one that started the cult, one of the cults.
yeah,
I think it was the
yeah.
cult of the
That's the one
light.
I'm talking about. Yeah, she was blind.
Was she? Oh, I didn't I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah,
I didn't pick.
they showed her eyes like being like white and like her pupils were white and like kind of like foggy.
Well, another thing that they don't, that they're like, here's a thing, is that there's like basically the equivalent of like the Fallout ghouls. Like there's a couple of characters that don't have noses, that
Yeah.
their skin's all mottled. They look like the ghouls from Fallout. And
Right.
then there's characters in like varying stages of that. Nobody addresses that ever.
Yeah,
Like,
because they're used to it because they're living on Earth that no longer has an ozone layer, and so they're burned from like all the radiation.
I mean, that would be a whole lot of radiation. Um, but so tell us about, like, I don't remember. Absurdism is,
It's okay.
you got it. Yeah, you got to give me a refresher on absurdism.
So first of all, I'm only telling you what I understand what absurdism is. I did not read the myth of uh, Sisyphus, but I know kind of about it. So it kind of branches from nihilism, which is a branch of existentialism, which is basically life is meaningless.
And that's it.
Um,
There's nothing else. Yeah,
yeah,
nihilism is like,
pretty much. Yeah,
is there is there is no meaning to anything we do, and that's the end of it.
yeah. It's just like we have no purpose. Uh, the guy who like coined the phrase Nietzsche, he said God is dead and we killed him,
Yeah.
which comes into this movie too. By the way, with the Mima, like everybody's so depressed that the Mima, the AI thing, gains sentience and then immediately kills itself.
See, that's the
Like,
thing. I don't know if it gained sentience or it had sentience from the very beginning. One thing I do like that made me think about with the Mimo was, I was like, is this a technological sentience or is this a,
I
but
don't
then
think it
I'm
was
like, no,
sentient. Like
I
it
think
gained
it
it from just all the people coming to it all the time.
I think it I don't know. I think it always had it, but because she talks about how it's being overloaded and it can't like
Yeah.
regulate its own emotions.
It's like ChatGPT, you know. It's like when
Well,
there's so many people using ChatGPT, it kind of like shuts
yes,
down.
it turns into a Nazi like Grok. Um, but but that was the thing. I was like, well, if it was a technological sentience, you could create a whole new one. But then I was like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, it was probably some sort of biological sentience, like maybe that they couldn't manufacture on the ship.
Well, it blew itself up, so it made sure it couldn't be rebuilt.
Yeah, but what
Um,
I'm saying is like there's like you could harvest enough computer parts from the various computers around the ship to create a new like data center if it was a like a technologically driven AI. But if its core is biological, um like if it was a network of like artificially grown brain matter that it fried itself, like you're not going to be able to re you know
yeah,
regenerate all that unless you like sacrifice someone. But I don't think they had the by like the bioscience know-how to do it.
yeah. Well,
um
anyway, back to
yeah, absurdism.
yeah, we're not even there yet. I thought it was really cool that yeah, so like the whole thing about nihilism, which is like the biggest thing in this, like the topic of debate throughout the movie is the nihilism. So it's like, yeah, I love how the famous quote is God is dead and we killed him. And then the AI killed itself and they worship it like a god later on. So Mima is the god, it's dead, and they killed it through their own depression. Which also Mima blamed them. Like it starts talking for the first time ever, and it's just like there's no escape from humanity. You know, like fuck y'all. Um, so I thought that was really cool. But anyway, so yeah, that's nihilism. It's life is meaningless. There's like so a lot of people struggle with that, especially Emma's partner, and so that's why there's a lot of suicide. So anyway, but then you have characters like Mr. who I see as absurdist, and what absurdism that I understand it is that life is meaningless, but you give meaning to it. Like you make your own meaning. And so that's what MR does. Like she understands that at first that the ship is going to come back to Mars 2 years instead of 3 weeks. And she's just like, hey, we're cool. We got everything we need here. And she's got a job. She controls the Mima. She's in charge of that. She's helping guide people to experience joy through the Mima. So that's her purpose. And like when that dies, that all happens. She gains a new purpose by finding love, and then they have a child together. And then later, she's just like, "Well, I'm going to create this the waterfall projection thing." So she's like continually like giving herself a new purpose, giving life meaning. She's finding reasons to go on and just like enjoying her life just how she can. She's taking this like horrible situation, she makes the best of it. However, nihilism eventually ends, or it eventually beats absurdism because she ends up giving up at the very end. I'm sorry, you said it a couple times. I forget what her partner's name is.
Oh, Isagel?
Easy girl.
Yeah.
When she unfortunately kills their daughter and kills herself, that's where MR finally gives up. And then but she doesn't die herself. She lives on all the way to the end. She's like the last survivor as far as we know. And she keeps
Yeah.
going,
That was
but
the thing, she never, even after that, she never gave up, like,
yeah.
she's still even in her despair, like, she still kept working on, like,
Yeah.
building the machine that she originally meant for Isagel. Um,
Right, but
s
she does end up being depressed and just like she doesn't care anymore. So I think nihilism does win in the end, and then you get the 5 million year time jump at the end, and everybody's dead. So that's when nihilism really wins, is because it doesn't matter. Nothing mattered at the end. Like she made that projection. 5 million years later, the ship's still flying through space, and everybody's long dead. Everybody's been dead for like 99.9% of the ship's journey. Yeah.
what's interesting, I mean, going a little bit back to, like, the existentialism versus absurdism, like, I don't know absurdism too well, but, really, like, the captain and the crew, I go back to them, especially because they very much are like a blueprint for existentialism. Like, they are spacefarers. They know that there is nothing out there. But existentialism really says, like, that we are created into the chaos, that there is nothing, and it's only through our actions and decisions that we give existence meaning. Um
Yeah, that's
so
kind of absurdism. So
um
it gets confusing.
I mean, they're both like they're both born of the same core. Um, Existentialism more is more about, like, the as I've understood it, is like the hard decisions, like the making of the machine builds the describes itself basically. So it's just like they created the captain and the crew created order from the disorder, and I think that's why also they fell into that authoritarianism, because, as you know, entropy came in and to destroy everything, to poison their food source, because at one point their algae becomes infected. Like, at some point somebody mentions, like, oh, if the water's brown, the algae's infected, and then, like, the captain's second in command's like, the water smells like sulfur, and they cut to like the algae processor like walking the kids on a field trip through
Yeah.
the like algae vats, and there he's
Oh,
like,
which by the way is another thing that Itmar like assigns her more of like a purpose again. She teaches the kids.
yeah, and I mean she takes that job seriously, and she's like
Yeah.
very happy with it too.
So yeah, she's
Um,
very much an absurdist, and I looked up the definition. So absurdism is a philosophy centered on the conflict between humanity's innate search for meaning and the universe's inherent meaningless. So it's like kind of like that versus kind of thing, which yeah. So it's not like the movie is nihilism versus absurdism. It's like the movie is absurdism, and it all kind of goes back to the myth of Sisyphus, the Greek myth of the guy who he when he died, he went to the underworld. His punishment is to roll a rock up a hill or a boulder up a hill, and then once he gets it to the very top, it rolls back down, and like his punishment will not end until he gets it to the top of the hill, but he never does because it keeps rolling back down. And so absurdism, the guy who wrote a book about it, um, he says that like Sisyphus is happy because even though he can't get to the hill, he still has a purpose.
is that Camus or
Yeah,
Camus in the
Camus.
French
Yeah,
pronunciation? Yeah, I
yeah,
actually have
Camus.
read
We're Americans here, so his name is Camus.
that's how I always pronounced it. I actually read quite a bit of Camus in college. Like that was my some people read Kierkegaard and some people read Nietzsche. The Fall was like one of my favorite books because it's a one-sided monologue that the devil is having with no, that's The Stranger. The Stranger's a one-sided monologue that the devil is having with a dude in a bar, but you never get to hear the other person's side. The Fall is there is a guy who is arrested and sent to jail for not being sad at his mother's funeral.
What?
Um, yeah, there I like there's some very like existential themes. Um, Clearly, and he has a story about Sisyphus about where Sisyphus is very much just like, well, guess I got to start over. Eventually, I'll get that rock there though, and then he just
I'm doing
like
my job. It's all in the day's work.
yeah, like, oh, almost made it. Well, I'll get that rock tomorrow, you know? Um,
And that's what MR is. She is Sisyphus in this
yeah,
movie
I can see that. I
because,
really,
like, yeah,
I really think there was a lot of different isms in this
yeah,
in
very
this
much so.
work.
Also, not only that, but like, it's yeah, so many metaphors and MR. One character, there's so many different metaphors for this one character, and if you notice throughout the movie, she goes through all this different stages of shit, what's it called? Of
Emotion, grief.
grief. Yeah. I don't know why I forgot grief. She goes through all the different stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So, the first one is denial, when like they find out that they're hurtling through space, and at first they're like, it'll be 2 years, and she's like, cool, no problem. Mars fucking sucks. We're good here. Don't worry about it. That's denial. And then she starts like, I guess isn't there's also like panic too, I think.
Yeah, I
And
mean, she does have a couple of moments of panic, but
yeah,
eventually, like,
and that's the
she
next
oh
one. When the astronomer tells her that like, no, we're not going anywhere, she has a whole panic attack. And so and then
yeah, she very much is a this is fine, everything's fine.
yeah. And then anger, and then there's bargaining. And so she's talking to the captain. She's just like, "Hey, I need more employees working for me. I need fewer people so we don't overload the system." So that's bargaining. And then there's depression, which comes later when she gets the award, she's kind of mostly given up, and she doesn't care about the award. She tosses it on the ground. She's like, whatever. Uh, and then acceptance at the very end when there's like 10 people left, 24 years into the journey. She's just sitting there. She's not saying anything. She's not moving. She's just accepted her fate, and she's just like, yeah,
Which
no.
I saw somebody else talking about this film, and they didn't cover a whole lot, like other than the world building and that sort of thing. But one thing that was mentioned, which I find interesting, was like all their food stores are done. The algae isn't producing algae anymore. At some point they had to have started eating. Like she's sitting there with like five, six other people. At some point they had to start eating the dead because
I mean, there's
there's
a lot of dead people to eat.
and and clearly they still had electricity and there was a lot of freezers. Um so which is like so there was this the original poem was written in like post World War
1956.
II. Yeah, post World War II, like after the bombing of Hiroshima. I saw was like one of the major inspirations for it.
Yeah, the author. I found this out today. He it it was like 1951, something like that. The Soviets finally like announced that they had like a bomb, like a atom bomb that they were testing, and he had a dream that Earth was destroyed by nuclear annihilation and everybody moved to Mars. And then he was like, "I'm gonna write a poem," and he wrote that poem for like 3 years.
I It's also interesting that it's a poem, like it is a book length poem. But
Yeah,
um as far as the technology goes, like for this movie, there was some stuff that I thought was really interesting. Like it really made me think, like, is the Mima like vat grown brain cells that somehow, like it's a psychic vat grown entity and that's why they couldn't replace it. But then other things where they're like, we have no form of propulsion, but they had an infinite amount of oxygen. And I'm sitting there and going, brother, like, open a hatch. Like, you don't have to do a blow all in one go. Like, you can just have one little vent, venting a little bit of oxygen, and it adds up. And eventually, because, in space, like, propulsion is additive. You can either have one big, like, propulsive force, or you can have a continuous tiny force acting over a really long time. And one thing they had was time. And I'm like, I feel like and maybe this is a future where like space, like captains and crew aren't scientists, like they're literally just taxi drivers and they're like, we press the buttons that do the
yeah.
thing. But like you had a whole a, astrophysicist astronomer, like she should know
She was
your
drunk.
I mean that's fair. So and that was the other, so she very much is the nihilist, like she's like,
Yeah.
we're all gonna die.
Uh
um
huh.
but she she had the knowledge, like obviously she had the knowledge for making hooch, but somebody has this knowledge because they're teaching it to the children.
Yeah.
Um, Now I didn't read the poem, so I don't know if the poem addresses like that. Like maybe they're living in a very, like they have to live in ecological balance and they can't afford the extra oxygen. But in the movie, it seemed like power was infinite and oxygen was infinite. Like they had some sort of oxygen plant.
Yeah.
Um,
Otherwise, that would have been a much shorter movie.
yeah, exactly. Um, so I thought that was
So, are you
cool.
saying that like they should have like nudged their thrusters to like turn them in the correct direction?
Yes. Well, and then and I was like, okay, whatever. But then they're like, "Oh, by the way, we have these grappling hooks that have boosters on them. It's not a whole lot of boostering. It's only a little amount of boostering." And I'm like, wait, what? like, like,
Yeah, a good thing they had that. I mean, I guess it didn't matter, but good thing they had that.
well, and I'm like, okay, sure, it's only a little amount of boostering. I get it. And then they're like, oh, we have um, what do they call? It's the same thing that's in a microwave. Um, a magmatometer? No. Oh, what's the thing in a microwave called?
I don't know.
That makes all the a magnetron. They're like, all right, we have to use our magnetron to slow this like torpedo shaped probe that's full of fuel that they're sending at us. And I'm like, wait, you have a magnetron that generates magnetic or gravitational force, and apparently power is infinite on this ship. Brother, turn the magnetron on. Like, you can use that. Okay, it's only on one side of the ship, you're gonna turn in a circle. um but that's being, at that point I'm just being
Nitpicky.
facetious about like
Yeah. Well,
this movie.
here's the thing. There's a really good reason why I guess they can do that, but it's another one of those pointless things that doesn't matter because you're talking about if Mars was in a central location and it was just in one place forever. Mars and Earth and everything else is revolving around the sun, spinning around the sun. It's never in the same spot. So if they point themselves in the right in that right direction, very soon it will no longer be the right direction. Like it's you would have to actually constantly be changing direction until you reach Mars. And then you have to be in alignment with its revolving around the sun. So it's like there's so much to it.
Sure, but you're not continuously changing direction. You point yourself where, it sort of works like when we launch satellites into orbit. We don't put them where they're gonna like we don't put them in a relative space and then like have them thruster continuously. We put them where they're going to be. So it's sort of the same thing. Like, you aim the ship, you do the
Yeah.
math calculations. It was
Yeah,
like
but they probably can't do that though. Uh,
they had an astronomer. Like, they could have done the calculations. If Tom
well,
Hanks in Apollo 13 can do the calculations of where the moon is gonna be.
I was on Reddit and I was reading about this movie, what other people had to say about it, and somebody said that exactly. They said, "Did they never see Apollo 13?"
I mean, that's like, if you have a magnetron, you just have to turn yourself in the right direction, and you're like, "Oh, we're not moving that fast. It's going to take 4 years, the 4 years that
May-
it took us
may-
to get to this point."
Maybe it'll just never line up with Mars.
Like, that's fine, but at least you're in the solar system. It's probably a lot easier to call for help in your own galaxy, like
Shit,
in your own solar system.
they couldn't reach out for help the day that they went off course
Yeah,
for
that's a good point.
whatever
Like,
reason.
why didn't the day they went off course,
Fucking
like
the fucking guy who wrote the poem just had to write it in 1956 when before like
before
the
the
moon
Apollo
landing.
program?
Yeah, before any of this shit. So let's blame that guy for not waiting later. Now, you know what? Let's talk about that guy because I found out some interesting information that'll bring a little bit more context to
The
this
the
story.
Nobel laureate, something Martinson. What was this?
Oh, I don't remember his name. I'm really bad with names. You will find out listening to this podcast that I don't remember anybody's names.
I mean,
Um,
we've learned that with Isegal.
yeah,
Harry Martinson, that's what it was. So
Harry
what did you
Martinson.
learn about
Uh,
Nobel laureate?
before he became a poet, he spent can he spent his first several years within his like teenage and early 20s as a sailor.
Oh, that
Interesting.
makes sense. That makes
Yeah,
sense to the context of this film. Yeah.
yeah. So he's sailing out forever. Yeah, it's now this doesn't really bring much context, but it's funny. Like he just ran away everywhere. Anytime he came up across any problem, he just ran away. So like his dad died very early on in his life. His mom, after his dad died, she had like seven kids, six, seven kids, and then after their dad died, she just fucked off and then went to America. They're in Sweden. She just went to not just America, but Portland, Oregon. And so he ended up in a foster home, apparently auctioned off to like some family, and then he ran away from that, joined the Navy, ran away from the Navy, became a sailor, did a couple jobs, ran away from that. And just like anytime he had any sort of issue, he just ran away and started a new life and he was fine. But yeah, then he became a poet. And then he was like 50 when he wrote Aniara.
Did he happen to know Hunter S. Thompson? That's very Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, shit. I mean, he's before Hunter S. Thompson because he was doing all this in like the 20s.
yeah, it's true. Thompson was due like 60s and 70s.
Yeah. So, because he was born in 1904. So, but anyway, he ended up he wrote this was Eniara's like his most like famous work that he's ever done, but he did a few other things. He did a biography that got really popular. But eventually in his 70s, apparently like he was controversial, like a lot of people don't really respect him, and he died by suicide.
Oh wow. This, I mean, still very much fitting with the themes of this film.
Yeah, I know. When I read that, I was like, of course he did. After what he wrote in this poem, um, he stabbed himself in the stomach with a pair of scissors.
That's pretty metal. Like, that is a way to do it.
Not high on my list of ways to do it, but
Were the scissors open or closed? I don't know why that's
that I don't
important.
know.
Like, that's it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, he was in his 70s.
I mean, that's th- still even more brutal. Like, to
Right?
just be like, oh yeah, man, I'm just gonna stab myself in the gut or cut myself open with these scissors, like
Yeah,
cutting some paper. That's that's pretty brutal. That's very much fitting with the. It's also very. It feels like when I was like, oh, that's metal. Everything this like the Swedes didn't
yeah.
invent metal, but we kind of associate them
I
the
mean,
most heavily with metal, especially like, well, the Swedes for the most part I believe did invent like death metal and
not death. No, death metal was like came from like Florida, but they created melodic death metal. So they took what already existed and they like heavily improved on it.
death metal came from Florida. Somehow that also makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
bands like Cannibal Corpse,
that
um, Obituary, Death.
Like when you think about Florida, like that tracks. But yeah, like metal very much feels like a when you have like bands like Dark Throne and that are very much known as like Swedish metal bands that they're like, oh,
Yeah,
we
In
burned a church down.
Flames, Soil Work.
Well, there's that one. Oh, were they Swedish or Norwegian? I mean, same general area. I think it was Dark Throne, where it's like their bassist committed suicide, and their like guitarist found him and collected his bone fragments and made necklaces
I think I
and
heard about
gave them to fans, and they put him in jail for like 5 years for desecrating a corpse.
that. And then right next door, you have Norway with all the black metal bands.
Yeah,
So,
they like burning
I
down
mean,
churches
shit,
and
these
stuff.
guys came from Vikings. So, you know, uh,
So yeah, good those wacky Swedes and their existentialist brutalist ships.
yeah.
So I mean to close this out, what was your final takeaway when we see 5 million years later and they like
Oh,
fly
man.
past
I
basically
mean,
an Earth, like a virgin, unsullied,
yeah,
un
it's
un
so ironic. And it's like, they made it. If only they'd held on for another 5 million years. Shit, 5.9 million years. Um,
so like was it is it the ultimate like form of irony, or is it
yeah.
if we're looking at the ship as a whole and not the people, the ship finally made it, like it finally reached its promised destination?
Well, like the whole movie is like a fuck you from God, pretty much. Like, um, just since the beginning, since the debris hit them, that's a fuck you. You're drifting out to nowhere. You'll never make it anywhere alive. That's a fuck you. The spear finally shows up, and they're like, "All right, we finally have some hope." And then it turns out that like it's nothing. That's a fuck you. And then finally, they do make it to the most habitable planet possible. 5.9 million years too late.
I
Fuck
mean, it's
you.
what's interesting is that this is, written in the 1950s, but like those sort of themes became very popular in the 70s with like The Moat and God's Eye, like Larry Niven, which is literally like we are in this universe, there's nothing we can do about it, and we are going to destroy ourselves. Um so and that very much was like holds for the Aniara. Like they are trapped on this ship with each other. There is nothing they can do about it except consume and destroy
Yeah.
themselves,
And
which
rave.
ultimately and and techno rave.
Yeah. And fuck.
I mean, that's just part of the human experience.
I mean, the whole thing is the human experience. We're all trapped on this ball going around in circles in a sun. We have no destination. We're stuck together. So it's another metaphor in this movie is this is us. This is what we are currently dealing with.
Well, I think that is a good drop off point on this one. I will catch you and everybody else on the next one then.
Hey.